All right. Hello, everyone. Time for another game of Marvel Champions. Um, the next alphabetical hero would have been Jubilee, but she obviously hasn't come out yet. But I've thrown her and Nightcrawler into the list just so I know where they're at for when they do come out. So Jubilee would have been going against Mojo, but we're going to skip that matchup. So we're going to skip Jubilee versus Mojo, and we're going to move on to the next hero versus villain. So that's going to be Magik versus the Morlock Siege scenario. So there are two different scenarios that use the same set of villains from the Next Evolution expansion. So you have the Morlocks and the Marauders are the villains that you use. And they are used in this scenario, the Morlock Siege, and then they're also used in the On the Run scenario. So you use the same set of villains. Kind of an interesting scenario, both of them, where you have multiple villains. But instead of having multiple villains at the same time, like you would in the Wrecking Crew or the Sinister Six or the Four Horsemen scenarios, they are going to be just one at a time, but you have to go against multiple different villains. So this particular scenario, the Morlock Siege scenario, is the first scenario from the Next Evolution expansion, and it normally requires you to use two modular encounter sets, which we are going to do. And the Mojo encounter also requires two modular encounter sets. So what I did was I just skipped the next two in alphabetical order and went to the next set of two instead. So the two modular encounter sets that we're going to include in our deck today are Hope Summers, which we used in the last game, which again is just two cards. It's an ally and a side scheme that gets shuffled into the main into the encounter deck. And then the other one is the Horror encounter set, which is one of the genre encounter sets from the Mojo expansion. So it's a bunch of like pop culture horror references, like zombies and vampires and things like that. So those are the two modular encounter sets we're going to use. And then what that means is, again, just like when we were playing as Ironheart, what that means is when we have Hope Summers, if she is knocked out, we lose. So we got to make sure that we don't let her get knocked out. Then we are going to choose one of the Marauders at random to be our first villain. And then each time we defeat one, we'll get a different one. There are 7 different Marauders to choose from, and you just randomly pick one to be the first one and then randomly pick a new one each time. And our goal is that we're going to try to defeat 3 of them. The first one we're going to go against is Blockbuster. Each of them work similarly, where they are going to say when they attack you, they're going to get a choice between 2 options. The first option on Blockbuster is whenever he attacks you or an ally you control, give him a tough card or give him +2 attack for this attack. So they all have something similar to that, where you have to give them +2 attack or give them something else. Okay, so then I'm going to be playing as Magik. I've only played as Magik twice, I believe, because Dara played as her in the Apocalypse campaign that she just came out in not too long ago. Magik's whole thing is that she's going to be wanting to manipulate and play the top card of her deck. So that's why I actually have her deck on camera today, because we're going to need to be able to actually see what card is on top. So I'll keep my discard pile off to the side, but I'll keep the deck in screen for now. On her alter ego side, it says when you change to hero form, so when you're going from alter ego to hero, you can take a spell card in your discard and put it on top of your deck. So that's a way that you can manipulate which card is on top. And then in hero form, her top card of her deck is always face up when she's in hero form. And once per phase, you can play the top card of her deck as if it was in your hand for 1 resource cost less than it would normally be. So I am going to, it's always hard when you have these once per phase things to make sure that you only do them once. So I'll try to make sure I use like a token or something to keep track of that, so I don't accidentally play 2 cards from the top of her deck in the same turn or something like that. So then she is prepackaged, and I keep them all prepackaged with keep them all in their aspects that they come as. She comes as an aggression character, so we're gonna play her as that. Let's take a look at her starting hand that we got today. So they reprinted the Spiritual Meditation card with her deck. And so this is a card that was a big deal in like Doctor Strange's deck because of how many spells he has. It says play only if you have the Mystic trait, which I have in both Alter Ego and Hero form. So that means I can do it as an action basically no matter what form I'm in. It's draw 2 cards and discard 1. I got Magik's Mystical Armor. She gains Retaliate 1. While the top card of your deck has an energy or wild resource icon, Magik gets +1 defense, so that's pretty good. Limbo is another way that I can manipulate the top card of my deck. After the villain phase begins, exhaust Limbo, swap a card in your hand with the top card of your deck. So I can do it right at the beginning of the villain phase. And then during my turn as an action, I can do exhaust Limbo to swap a card in my hand with the top card of my deck. So I can do it twice per round, essentially. Exorcism is a thwart event, so I can remove 4 threat from a scheme. And if the top card of my deck has a mental or wild resource icon, I can confuse the villain. I got the X-Jet basic card. It lets me generate a wild resource for a player whose identity has the X-Men trait, so that's going to just be me. And then I got the Avengers Mansion, which is exhaust it to draw a card. I really love the Avengers Mansion, and it's like if you're gonna play it, you kind of have to play it like as the first card of your game, like because otherwise it feels like such a waste to spend 4 resources on 1 card. But it can be really good. X-Jet I really like. I'm probably gonna want to play that. There's a lot of cards in here I want to play. I think X-Jet and Mystical Armor are probably going to be the 2 cards that I end up playing. So we'll see though. Okay, so then on my turn, I can let's go ahead and, since I know I'm going to want to play those cards, let's just go ahead and do it. I'm going to play the Mystical Armor first. I'm going to put that into play right away, and I'm going to pay for it with Spiritual Meditation, since that's a spell. And then when I flip to hero form, I'll just take that and immediately put on top of my deck. So that will be the top card of my deck. So I could play that for 1 resource less, which is free at the moment, basically. Then I said I was going to want to play the X-Jet, so I will spend... let's do Spiritual Meditation first, because I might like one of the cards that I draw. Yeah, so I'm going to play Spiritual Meditation from the top of my deck for 1 less, so for free still, to draw 2 cards and choose and discard 1 card from my hand. So I'm going to draw 2, and then the top card of my deck is always face up, so I'm going to flip that up. So I drew Soul Strike and I drew Critical Hit, and then I'm going to use just like a token here to show that I've used that ability this turn. Okay, I'm going to want to keep both of those probably. So I need to discard 1 card from my hand. So I'm going to discard the Avengers Mansion because I was going to end up using it as a resource probably anyway. Then I want to play the X-Jet, so I'm going to go ahead and play that. And I need to decide which 3 resources I'm okay with getting rid of. I'm okay with getting rid of Exorcism for now. Limbo is really good. Soul Strike and Critical Hit go so well together, though. Oh, but Critical Hit only works if you've defeated a side scheme. So, okay, well that makes that decision easier then, I guess. So that's 2 resources, and then I'll just get rid of Limbo as the 3rd resource because I want to keep Soul Strike. Okay, so then X-Jet lets me generate a wild resource for a player whose identity has the X-Men trait. I would need 2 resources, though, to play Soul Strike. So I think what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and let's just attack twice with Magik and Hope Summers for a total of 4 damage. Bring Blockbuster down to 7. And then I think that's going to be it for that turn. Yeah. One thing I did forget to mention was part of the scenario is that at the beginning of each of the villains' turns, they're going to get knock counters. If you look, the title of the main scheme is called Knock Knock. And once there is 3 knock counters on the main scheme, it will go to the next main scheme. It can also go to the next main scheme if it hits 6 threat, like a normal main scheme works. We want it to go to the next main scheme by the knock counters, so we want to go at least 3 rounds getting those knock counters, because when it goes to the next main scheme, the whole point of this scenario is that they're trying to come in and attack the Morlocks, and we're trying to protect the Morlocks. And so when they go to the next scheme, we're going to get Morlocks, but if we get to the Morlocks with the knock counters instead of the threat, those Morlocks will come in with tough cards, which will make them stronger, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to keep Soul Strike, and then I'm going to draw up to my hand size, which is 5. Playing the top card of my deck is a once per phase, so I'm going to pull my counter off there, and I'm going to draw my card. So I know I'm getting critical hit, and then I'm going to get 3 more cards. So I get a Hulk ally, I get Stepping Disc, and I get X-Gene, and then the top card of my deck is always face up. Okay. X-Gene is going to reduce, be another way to generate resources. It's specifically for identity-specific events. Stepping Disc says, ready your hero, choose a magic card in your discard pile not named Stepping Disc, and put it on top of your deck. Another way to manipulate your deck. Hulk is an old ally. He's from the original box, but he's a really cool aggression ally. He hits really hard for 3 attack, but then you have to discard the top card of your deck, and depending on what you discard, he will do different things. So if you discard a fist, he'll deal damage. If he discards a yellow resource, he'll deal damage to every character, including yourself, and all kind of crazy stuff. If you get a blue, you have to discard him. He just runs away. If you get a wild, you get to do everything. But he's really cool in Magik's deck, because usually you're going to know when he attacks, you're going to know what the top card of your deck is, so you can wait to manipulate it so you don't have a blue resource sitting on top of your deck. Or if you have a wild, then you know even if he's going to run away, he at least is going to do all the other stuff too. Critical hit, we already know, it is going to only be useful if we can get rid of a side scheme, and then the Soul Strike that we held on to. Okay, so at the beginning of the villain turn, they're going to get 1 threat on the main scheme, and then also get a knock counter. And then Blockbuster is going to attack me for 2, and I have to let him have +2 attack and attack me for 4, or give him a tough status card. I think what I'm going to do is I am going to let's see, the top card of my deck is not a yellow or a wild, so I do not have +1 defense. I can't defend with Hope Summers because she would die. So unfortunate as it is, I think I'm going to give him the tough card, just so he's not hitting me quite so hard. I do have Retaliate, so that tough card won't actually matter, which is also part of the decision. So I'm going to go ahead and defend it, just so I don't take a huge attack. I'm especially okay with defending it since I have that Stepping Disc in my hand, because that'll let me ready. Okay, so he's going to attack me for 2 plus a boost card. He's attacking for, the boost card has 1 boost on it, plus if you control a Morlock ally, choose to either deal a damage to it or spend a resource of any type. Those are not in play yet, so we're just going to discard that. So he's hitting me for 3, and I defended for 2, so I'm taking 1 damage. My starting health is 10, so I'm going to go down to 9. And then I have Retaliate, which means he's just going to lose that tough that he just got. And that's that. Then he's going to give me an encounter card for the round. The encounter card is the Kraken. This is one of the horror cards. So it has 6 health. After the Kraken activates, each other character takes 1 damage. Okay, so it hits everybody, including the villain and everybody. So we're not going to want that to happen because that will also hit Hope Summers. So we're going to want to get rid of that if we can. When defeated, each friendly character heals 1 damage. Okay, that's okay. All right, so we're going to set him up there. All right, and then it is going to be my turn. Okay. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to want to get rid of that Kraken pretty much immediately. So I think I'm going to spend critical hit to play X-Gene, because that's just going to make everything easier with how she plays. I'm going to spend the X-Gene to produce a wild resource for an identity-specific event, and I'm going to play Stepping Disc. So I get to ready my hero, and then choose a Magik card in my discard pile, not named Stepping Disc, and put it on top of my deck. So I'm going to find Limbo from my discard pile. I'm going to flip Spiritual Meditation face down, and I'm going to put Limbo on top of my deck. Because of its red resource. And then I am going to use the X-Jet as a wild resource plus Hulk as a resource to play Soul Strike. Soul Strike deals 4 damage to an enemy, and if the top card of my deck has a fist or wild resource, stun that enemy. So I'm going to deal 4 damage to the Kraken and also stun the Kraken. That way it doesn't kill me. Granted, I could just... I guess I could just kill the Kraken. I mean, I want Limbo on top of my deck regardless of what I do. Okay, then... Yeah, you know what? I think I might just kill the Kraken. So the stun is kind of useless, but I wanted Limbo on top of my deck anyway. I'm going to use Hope Summers to take out the Kraken with her 2 attack. And then when defeated, each friendly character heals 1 damage. So I'm the only character that's taken damage, so I'll take 1. Or I'll heal 1, I mean. And then get rid of the Kraken. Then I'm going to use her once per phase. I'm going to play the top card of my deck as if it was in my hand for 1 less. So I'm going to play Limbo. So now I have that in play. And then the top card of my deck flips, which we knew already was going to be Spiritual Meditation. And then as an action during my turn, I can swap a card in my hand with the top card of the deck. But I don't have any cards in my hand. I've already played my whole hand. But at the beginning of the villain phase, I'll be able to swap as well. And then I will use Magik's basic attack to swing at Blockbuster for 2. Knock him down to 5. And then I think that's going to be it for that turn. So we'll go ahead and ready all of my cards. This is a lot more of a board state than an aggression character usually has. Let me pull back a little bit here so we can get everything on camera. Come on, camera. There we go. All right. Normally aggression characters don't have this much stuff. All right, so I'm going to draw 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the top card is always face up. Sweet, it is a yellow resource. Okay, so that means that I've got +1 defense during this villain's turn, so that's going to be helpful. Okay. All right, so we knew I was going to draw Spiritual Meditation, and then I drew 2 copies of You'll Pay for That. This is after the villain attacks you, remove a threat from a scheme for each damage you took, max 5. I got a player side scheme. This one's called Keep Them Busy. This is from the X23 deck originally. It has Assault, which means that you can attack it instead of thwarting it. And then it says the player who defeated this scheme removes 5 per player threat from the main scheme. So you can attack this as a roundabout way of removing threat from the main scheme, basically. And then a basic spell says play only if your identity has a mystic trait, obviously. And then it's got 3 different choices: heal, remove threat, or deal 3. Okay. All right, at the beginning of the villain phase, he is going to get 1 threat on the main scheme and 1 knock counter on the main scheme. And if I want to, I can swap a card in my hand with the top card of my deck. I do have other... I think I'm going to, because it can swap Legion into my hand and swap You'll Pay for That onto the top of my deck. So that doesn't mess up the energy resource that's on there. And now I can play You'll Pay for That from the top of my deck for 1 less resource, making it free, because I can do that once per phase. So I can do that once during the villain phase as well. Okay, so then he's going to attack me. And this time I think I'm going to give him the +2 defense. Actually, there's no reason for me not to give him the tough card every time now, because I have that retaliate, because it's just going to go away immediately. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to defend. And since I have a yellow resource on top of my deck, actually, I might not want to defend this time, because I just put You'll Pay for That on top of my deck, which means I kind of want to take damage. That way I can remove threat from the main scheme. Yeah, I'm not going to defend. Okay, so, which, I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose of having that on there. But, like, if I defend for 2 and he hits me for 4, and, I mean, if I defend for 2, I'm defending for 3. So he'd have to get a boost card of at least 2 for me to take any threat off the main scheme, which isn't super likely. So I think I'm just going to not defend it. So he's going to hit me for 2. Okay, I'm glad I did that. So he hit me for 2 plus 0. So I take 2. So I go down to 8. I have retaliate, so my retaliate takes out his tough. And then after the villain attacks you, remove 1 threat from a scheme for each damage you took. I took 2, so I'm going to play You'll Pay for That for free since it's on the top of my deck. And flip the new card, which is X Bunker, which means then I can remove 2 threat from the main scheme. Just trying to ensure that I make it to that 3rd knock counter, which I was probably going to no matter what, but just making sure. And also just trying to kind of manipulate Magik's deck for the fun of it, just because when I've played her the couple times I've played her, I haven't really gotten to do it a whole lot. It's kind of just been like a side thing as part of the deck rather than the main thing. So now I'm just trying to do it as much as possible just to show it off, and because when I've played her the couple times I've played her, I haven't really gotten to do it a whole lot. Okay, so then he needs to give me an encounter card. So encounter card I'm getting is Captive Hope. So this is the side scheme that comes with the Hope Summers encounter set. It says, when revealed, exhaust Hope Summers, and Hope Summers cannot ready while this card is in play. So I'm just going to take her and just set her exhausted underneath of it, just to kind of move her out of the way for now. And that comes into play with 3 threat and has an acceleration icon on it, so that will make the main scheme go faster. Okay. Then it is my turn. Okay. Let's see. The X Bunker I could play from the top of my deck for 1 less. So it says exhaust X Bunker and choose a player whose identity has the mutant trait. So that can only be done during Alter Ego for me because I don't have the mutant trait when I'm in hero form. That player searches the top X cards of their deck for any card where X is the number of side schemes in the victory display and adds that card to their hand. Okay, so that's not super useful. So I think what I'm going to do is I do have a side scheme in my hand that could go to the victory display, but it would remove a bunch of threat from the main scheme that doesn't have any on it right now. So I think I'm going to go ahead and play Spiritual Meditation for free, draw 2 cards and discard one of them, and I'm probably going to end up just discarding this X Bunker, but we'll see what the other card is. So the other card I drew was Magic Barrier, which is a defense spell. When an enemy initiates an attack, prevent 3 of it. If the top card of your deck is yellow or wild, deal 3 damage to the attacking enemy. So yeah, I'm going to keep that, and I'm just going to go ahead and discard the X Bunker. And the new top card of my deck is Press the Advantage. Deal 2 damage to an enemy. If that enemy is stunned or confused, draw a card. Okay. Let's see. Do I have any ways of stunning or confusing an enemy? Not right now. So I could just use it just because it's free, since it's on top of my deck. I mean, 2 damage for free is nothing to sneeze at. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and use my ability to play Press the Advantage from the top of my deck for 1 less, so it's going to be free. Deal 2 damage to an enemy. I'm going to deal that to Blockbuster. He'll be down to 3 health. And then the new top card of my deck is Scrying. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, draw 1, discard 1, and put 1 back. And that's got a blue resource. Okay, then I am going to generate a resource with the X-Jet. And generate a resource with X-Gene, since it's specifically for an event, and play the basic spell. Choose 1, heal 3, remove 3 threat, or deal 3 damage. I'm going to just go ahead and deal 3 damage and knock Blockbuster down to 0. In this scenario, when we defeat one of the villains, they're going to go underneath this routed card. This routed card says, after the villain is defeated, put it under here. Discard each minion that shares a title with the top villain of the villain deck. So the new villain is going to come in, and the minion. There's also ways for the minions to be in there as well. Then the villain activates against each player in player order. So the new villain that we're going to get is going to get a free activation against us. So we're going to grab one of the other 6 randomly here. All right, so we are getting Gray Crow, it looks like. And so he is going to activate against us. So he's going to attack us for 1. His is, when he attacks you or an ally you control, discard the highest cost card you control. So in this case, that would be X-Jet. Or give him plus X attack, where X is equal to that card's cost. So I'm going to give him plus 3 attack, or have to discard the X-Jet. I think I'll just let him have the plus 3 attack, and I'll defend it. And yeah, I will not get the plus 1 defense because the top card of my deck is blue. I know it's kind of hard to see that right now. The top card of my deck is blue. So I will not get the plus 1 defense, but I do have Retaliate. Speaking of which, what is his health resets to 9? Yeah, I think that's all I can really do. Yeah, so he's going to attack me for 4 plus a card. So 5, and if this attack is an activation, it gains overkill. So he would be hitting me. If he hit an ally, it would go through anyway. So he's hitting me for 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 1 is 5. I defended for 2, so I'm going to take 3 damage, down to 5. And then he's going to take 1 back because I have Retaliate. Okay. Then I'd like to play Legion, but the top card of my deck is a blue resource, which means I would remove 2 threat from a scheme, but that's not really going to be super helpful. So I think instead I am going to hold on to him, and I'm going to pay, you'll pay for that, and play Keep Them Busy to have that over here just in case I need it. So that's going to come in with 3 threat on it. And then I'm going to hold on to Magic Barrier and Legion because I'd like to have both of those. Magic Barrier will be nice since I don't want him to make me discard the X-Jet. You know what? I could have just used that just now. Yeah. So instead of taking 3 damage, I could have, and instead of defending with her basic defense, I could have just, let's just say I did this. I'll just say I spent Legion and played Magic Barrier, and I would have prevented 3 of the damage. So instead of taking, so he hit me for 5. So instead of taking 3, I would have only taken 2. So I'll be down to 6 instead of 5. And then the top card of my deck does not have a yellow or wild, so I would not have gotten to deal 3 damage back to him, but that would have been more effective. Because then, instead of being exhausted, I can still use her during my turn. So then I will go ahead and thwart for 1 with her on Captive Hope, so I can try to get Hope back. Yeah, I think that would have been better. Okay, so then let's go ahead and ready everything up. And then I know for sure I'm drawing Scrying, and then I need to draw 4 more. So I'm going to get Magic's Crown. She gains Steady, which means she can't be stunned or confused unless she gets stunned or confused twice. And then while the top card of her deck has a blue or wild resource, she gets +1 Thwart. Spiritual Meditation, we already know what that does. Magic Barrier, we know what that does. We just did that. Specialized Training is a cool side scheme. The way that this one works is when you put it in play, it's got 5 threat, and then when you defeat it, there's a set of these specialized training upgrades that you can give out. It's a little bit cooler in multiplayer because when you defeat it, then every player gets one of these. But when you're playing a solo, you can kind of adapt to the specific game that you're playing and choose one of these. Essentially, they give you +1 to something. So they're going to give you +1 thwart, +1 defense, +1 attack, or this one gives you +4 health. And then they do something where if you use that ability, you're going to draw a card. So like this one gives you +1 thwart. After your hero performs a basic thwart, draw a card. So that's kind of the way they all work. Kind of a cool card. It came in the X23 kit originally, but I've got it in here now. Okay. I'm definitely going to want to play the Magic Barrier. That is for sure. Okay, so I'm going to remove this. I'm going to flip this. Top card of my deck is blue. Okay. Critical hit is blue. Slide that over a little bit. Okay, so beginning of his turn, he's going to get 1 threat on the main scheme. and he's going to get 1 knock counter, so that's just going to trigger it. So it says, if there are at least 3 knock counters here, advance to stage 2A. So we're just going to not even put any of that stuff on there, because we're just going to end up taking it off anyway. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next main scheme. Okay, so stage 2A says, when revealed, each player puts 1 set-aside Morlock ally into play under their control. Since I'm playing as solo, it says 2 set-aside Morlock allies instead if this is a single-player game. So no matter what player count you're playing at, you're going to have at least 2 of these Morlock allies. Then it says, shuffle the Hide Treachery card into the encounter deck. If the previous stage was advanced by knock counters, give each Morlock ally a tough status card. Okay. So the Hide Treachery card says, when revealed as an encounter card, it will have Surge, so you have to get another one. And then when revealed, give 1 Morlock ally a tough status card. So this is a Treachery card. That's actually a good thing when it comes out of the deck, which is rare and awesome. Okay, so I'm going to shuffle that in. And then each of the 2 Morlock allies that I just got comes in with tough. And now that we have the Morlock allies, they do not count against our ally limit. And they have an ability that says Forced Interrupt. When an enemy attacks you, it has to attack a Morlock you control instead. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't defend it. That just means that we have to choose to defend it in order to stop it from going to the Morlocks. So normally you have to, normally it's the other way around. Normally they attack you and you have to choose whether you want to put the ally in front of it instead. Now it's the other way around. Now they go for the ally, and if we choose not to defend it with one of our other allies or with our identity, then it'll go to the Morlock instead, which is why it's really cool that if you go through with the knock counters, you get the tough cards. So you basically kind of get like a free attack on the Morlocks. But if the Morlocks all get knocked out, then we lose. So on this second main scheme, it says, if there are 3 villains underrouted, we win. So that's still how we win. So we need to kill Grey Crow and then kill 1 more villain. But then it also says if this stage is completed, so if it hits 8 threat, or if there are no Morlocks in play, we lose. So now we've got 2 different ways we can lose. Now that we've got the Morlocks as well, we have a special action available to us on the main scheme, which is exhaust a Morlock ally to shuffle the Hide card from the encounter discard pile back into the encounter deck. So if it comes out, we can get it back in. Okay, so all of that was the beginning of his turn, and now he is going to attack a Morlock ally. I can choose to step in and defend it. I'm not going to because they have tough, so I'm just going to let one of the Morlocks take it, and I'm going to give him the +3 attack for X-Jet so that I don't have to discard it because it doesn't matter. So we're going to exhaust one of our 2 Morlocks, and then he's going to hit for 4 plus 1 is 5, but it doesn't matter because of the Morlock having tough, so he's just going to lose that tough card. And then it is going to be time for him to give me an encounter card. The encounter card we get this round is a Vampire. It says attacks with piercing deal double damage to Vampire. And then it says, after Vampire attacks and damages a character, heal all damage from Vampire. If no damage was healed this way, give him a tough card instead. Ouch. Okay, so basically we want to kill him all in one go. If we have a piercing attack, it'll deal double damage. We want to kill him all in one round. Otherwise, he'll heal. So that is not ideal. Okay. Got a lot of cards in front of us here. Okay, so it is now my turn. And let's see. I need to get Hope Summers back. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do scrying. I'm going to look at the top 3 cards of my deck, draw 1, discard 1, put 1 back. So I know what the top card is, and then Colossus is the next one, and then Press the Advantage is the next one. Well, I'm definitely going to put Colossus on top. I'll draw Press the Advantage and put... Actually, I'm going to draw a critical hit and put Press the Advantage in my discard. Okay. Then I'm going to spend a resource from the X-Jet plus 1 more resource from my hand with Spiritual Meditation to play Magik's Crown. I'm just going to stack it on top of her armor. So now she can't be stunned or confused unless she gets 2. And then if the top card is blue or wild, I get +1 thwart. Now that I have that +1 thwart, I'm going to go ahead and thwart for 2. And I have +1 thwart because Colossus, the card that I just put on top of my deck, Colossus is wild. And so I'm going to use that to finish off Captive Hope. It says when revealed, so when I defeat it, nothing special happens. It just goes into the discard pile. But now at the end of the round, or at the end of the phase, Hope can ready again, like she, since she's been stuck. Then I was thinking that Captive Hope was going to be a side scheme in the victory display, but it's not because it just goes to the discard pile. So instead of keeping critical hit, I am going to go ahead and keep Press the Advantage like I originally said from when I scryed the top card of my deck. I want to keep Colossus on top of my deck so that he's cheaper. So I don't want to use Limbo right now. I would like to try to kill the vampire, but I think I'm just going to have to deal with him for a round. I don't have any way to deal piercing damage to him right now. Yeah. Okay, so I think oh shoot, Colossus wouldn't end up being on top of my deck anyway because I'm going to have to draw cards. Shoot. Oh, but I can swap him back with Limbo. I can swap him back on top of my deck with Limbo. Yeah. Man, I haven't done any damage to the big guy this turn. Haven't done any damage to the big guy in a couple turns. So I think I'm going to use the X gene as a wild resource for an event. Oh, shoot. It has to be an identity-specific event, doesn't it? Yeah, never mind. I'll use that during the villain turn. I'm going to discard Specialized Training as a resource to play Press the Advantage to just deal 2 damage to the villain just because I can't keep sitting here not dealing damage to the villain. And then I'm going to hold on to Magic Barrier. And then we're going to go ahead and ready everything up. So many cards. I'm not used to having this many cards in play as an aggression character. It is certainly odd. I'm just going to put all my allies on the bottom. Hopefully you guys kind of understand what's going on here. I just only have so much space on my table here. Okay, so I'm keeping Magic Barrier. I'm drawing Colossus, and then I need 3 more cards. So Press the Advantage, Cosmo, and Soul Strike. Okay. So the cool thing about Colossus is that you can actually play him from your hand as a defense reaction. It says when enemy attacks you, play Colossus from your hand, paying his resource cost, and declare him the defender without exhausting him. Soul Strike, we already know what that does. Press the advantage, we already know what that does. Cosmo, when Cosmo attacks or thwarts, name a card type, then discard the top card of a deck. If that card is of the named type, Cosmo does not take consequential damage for this use. Okay. So then at the beginning of the villain phase, I'm going to go ahead and exhaust Limbo, and I'm going to swap You'll Pay for that with Colossus because I want him to be on top of my deck instead. At the beginning of the villain phase, he's going to get 1 threat on the main scheme, and then he is going to attack me, and I have to give him the +3 attack or discard the X-Jet. I'm going to let him have the +3 attack, and I'm going to go ahead and play Colossus from the top of my deck for 1 fewer resource. So I will do the X-Jet for 1, and then I just need to pay 1 more. So I will pay for that with... You'll pay for that. And then the top card of my deck needs to flip back up. Colossus comes in with a tough. He is going to defend the attack, and he does not have to exhaust. So he's just going to have his tough take all of it. So he's attacking for 1, +3 is 4, +2 is 6. And then that's just all taken up by Colossus's tough. All right, and then I have to get an encounter card further. Oh, and then the vampire has to attack me. So the vampire is attacking for 2. After the vampire attacks and damages a character, heal all damage. If no damage was healed this way, give vampire a tough status card. So I'm going to have him attack the Morlock because that will get rid of the tough, and then no damage was dealt. So it says after vampire attacks and damages a character, heal all damage from vampire. Boom. If no damage was healed this way, give him a tough. So he's going to get a tough. Okay. That vampire is going to get old real quick. Okay. All right, so then it is my turn. Ooh, you know what I could have done? Yeah, let's do that. So I could have used X-Gene as for an identity-specific event and done Magic Barrier. When an enemy initiates an attack, prevent 3 damage from it. And if the top card of your deck has a yellow or wild resource icon, deal 3 damage to the attacking enemy. I could have done that on either Grey Crow or the Vampire. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it to the Vampire because then he wouldn't get that tough card because he wouldn't have done any damage to the Morlock. So the Morlock would still have his tough card and he would have 3 damage, making it significantly more likely that I'll actually be able to get rid of that Vampire. Yeah, let's do that. Sweet. Okay. So then, and I was able to do that because the top card of my deck is Stepping Disc, which has a yellow resource on it. Okay. Sweet. All right, so then let's use our Morlock that has a tough card on him, and let's exhaust him and do a basic attack of 1 on the Vampire to get the Vampire up to 4 damage. And then I'm going to do Magik's basic attack of 2 to kill the Vampire. Let's just get rid of that guy so we don't have to deal with that anymore. And then I will use my once per round or once per phase to play Stepping Disc off the top of my deck for free because it's 1 less. So I get to ready my hero and choose a magic card in my discard pile, not named Stepping Disc, and put it on top of my deck. And I'm going to want, it's not really going to matter. since I'm just going to end up drawing it anyway. I want Soul Strike just so I can deal more damage, honestly. So I'm going to, just so I can guarantee that I'm going to draw that into my next hand. So I'm going to put Soul Strike on top of my deck. Then I will use, let's just use Magik's attack again of 2 to knock Grey Crow down to 4. I'm going to use Hope Summers' attack of 2 to knock him down to 2. I'm going to use Colossus's attack of 2, knock him down to 0. And then we're going to get a new villain. So Grey Crow goes underneath Routed. And then we get a new villain, and they get to activate against us for free. The only person I have right now that could defend is a Morlock, so I guess before I have Colossus technically do those last 2 damage, I will... no, it's fine. A Morlock can take it, because I don't have to protect all the Morlocks, I just have to make sure that they don't all die. Okay, so I need one more new villain, picking one randomly. We get Arclight. Okay, so Arclight says when she attacks, we have to confuse a character we control or give her +2 attack. So I'm going to go ahead and just let her confuse someone. I'll let her confuse the Morlock that she's going to be attacking. That Morlock is going to take 1 damage plus a boost card, so 2 damage. Not too bad. They have 5 health, so that's not too bad. Okay. Then last thing I'm gonna do is, oh, and then Arclight resets to 10 health. The last thing I can do is I'm going to pay 2 resources from my hand to play Soul Strike. It is not going to do its full effect since it do not have a red or wild resource on top of my deck, but that's okay. So I'm going to deal 4 damage to Arclight, knock her down to 6. And then that is going to be my whole turn. So I'll go ahead and ready everything up. I have so many cards. Got a whole row of allies that you guys can't even see right now. Okay. Doing my best here. Okay. And then I need to draw, so I'm going to draw Soul Strike for sure, and then 4 more cards. Stepping Disc, Basic Spell, another Basic Spell, and Soul Sword. So this is kind of the last piece of her upgrade kit where her crown gives her +1 thwart and her armor gives her +1 defense. This one gives her +1 attack as long as it's the correct type of card on top of her deck, and then she gains piercing. That would have been nice against the vampire. I knew that was in there, I just never got it. All right, well, if I can make it to my next turn, which I certainly hope that I make it to my next turn with all the stuff I have out in front of me, then I can very easily knock her out. So, okay, so the top card of my deck, I need to flip that. It is the Power of Aggression, which is a wild card. Perfect. All right. Okay, so at the beginning of Arclight's turn, she gets a threat on the main scheme, and then she is going to attack me. I'm just going to give her +2 attack, and I'll let Colossus take it. So she's going to hit him for 3 plus 0 is 3, so that knocks out Colossus. And then I'm going to get an encounter card, which is back in action. Give the villain a tough card. Place threat on the main scheme equal to the number of villains underrouted. Okay, so Arclight gets a tough card, and I have defeated 2 villains underrouted. So it gets 2 threat on the main scheme. Well, that was the best card she could have gotten if she didn't want to get knocked out in 1 turn. But I think even with that tough card, I can still do it because I've got a Morlock here that hasn't taken any damage. So I'll swing with him. He'll take a damage and get rid of her tough. And then I will use the X-Jet plus 1 resource to play a basic spell to deal 3 damage to an enemy, and then I'll pay 2 more resources to play another basic spell, deal 3 damage to an enemy, knock her down to 0. And that's it. And I could have done more damage too. I could have done 2 with Magik. I could have done 2 with Hope Summers. I could have done 1 with my Morlock that I have left yet. So I had plenty of things I could have done. Even with that tough card, I was not too worried about taking her out. That was awesome. This scenario is one of the easier scenarios they've come out with in a while. I don't think we've ever lost this scenario. This is starting to become the scenario that I use to test decks against. I used to do that with Rhino all the time. But this is the scenario I've started using instead just because it's a little bit more involved, a little bit more thought to it than Rhino rather than just beating him down. But just because the villains act a little bit differently depending on which ones you get and how you want to let them boost their attack or not boost their attack and things like that. But this scenario is fairly easy, so I wasn't expecting to have too much of an issue with it, but like, man, I kicked butt with Magik today, so which is good because I've been on a bit of a losing streak with Marvel today, or not today, but recently over the last week or so, I've lost like 4 games in a row, so it's good to get a win. Magik's a lot of fun if you can get her kit going. Obviously, with all these upgrades and stuff, she was pretty much impervious at that point. So yeah, lots of fun. All right. The next game of Marvel Champions I will be playing later this afternoon will be against Ronan. So we'll see how much karma I just lost against him based on playing this easier scenario. So we will see how that's going to go. That is for a campaign I'm doing outside of this challenge. The next game in the challenge will be Miss Marvel. I haven't played as her in quite a while. Miss Marvel versus Mysterio, one of the Spider-Man villains. So that should be a fun game. So keep an eye out for that one coming up in the next couple days or so. Mysterio versus Miss Marvel. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone.